Hi, my name is Matt Cross. I'm with Toledo Zoo. Today I'm going to be talking with you about some of the work we've been doing with a lot of our partners entitled Conservation of Blandingii Turtles in the Lake Erie Watershed. This is a large collaborative project we've had the privilege of working with a lot of partners on, and we've kind of lumped these all into this Blandingii Turtle working group thing. It's not official, just kind of a working thing to see if we like it. But yeah, this is a really interesting project, and we're just going to talk about a little bit of it today. Why turtles? Why reptiles? Reptiles have been declining globally for a while. People have been known this for quite some time, and there's a very heavily cited paper from 2000 relating the decline of reptiles to the decline of amphibians. And over the years, this has just picked up with more and more work coming out talking about how these taxa are in plight, they're declining, and we really need to be working to help their conservation. Turtles specifically. Again, turtles are probably one of the more imperiled taxa for a lot of reasons. They share a lot of the threats to them with a lot of other species. Habitat destruction and fragmentation are big ones, as we've seen with some of these other places where some of these hotspots are. Overexploitation is a big issue. Disease can be a problem. Here in this figure we see a kind of a global species richness for threatened turtles and tortoises, showing hotspots where they're threatened. And even up here in our little neck of the woods, we're in that kind of that mid-range. So more and more scientists have been trying to bring attention to the plight of turtles and tortoises around the world. They can have a very significant relationship in their ecosystems. They are often have a very high biomass and can be ecological engineers. So as we an indicator species. So as we see declines in turtles and turtle populations, it kind of lets us know there might be other problems down the river. Turtles have what we call a suite of life history traits that make them particularly vulnerable to changes in habitat and increases in mortality. So their life history traits, they are very long-lived and they have delayed sexual maturity. So people often say it's not that a turtle lives a long time, it's that it has to live a long time. So when they're not sexually mature for the first 10 to 17, maybe more years of their life, there are these large gaps in time where they aren't reproducing. They can live to be a very long time. So for Blandingii turtles, there was one up at the E.S. George Reserve in Michigan that was at least 83, and it was likely much older than that. And so this presents a problem because if you want to fully understand an organism like this, you need to study them for a very long time, and it doesn't always lend itself to some of these shorter term studies. So these high juvenile mortality and low recruitment kind of go hand in hand. We see a lot of nest predation with turtles from mesocarnivores. So up to 84 or more % of the nests are destroyed within the first 5 days, sometimes 47% in the first 24 hours. So there's generally very few that survive, that come out of the nest, and then fewer still that end up reaching sexual maturity. So this really puts a damper on the number of reproductive individuals coming into the population. They also require high adult survivorship. In a lot of populations, we see it approach 100% in some cases, but in general, adult turtles have very high survivorship, and they need to survive so they can have the chance to reproduce. So they'll lay the eggs. We know they're going to get dug up. We know that very few are going to live to sexual maturity, but we need them to live a long time so they can reproduce at least once and help maintain the population. So all of these combined are just this suite of characteristics that makes them very vulnerable to perturbations, and again, really difficult to study in the short term. So as we start moving forward, trying to make conservation decisions around turtles and tortoises, we oftentimes don't have the data we need and have to make some tough decisions. When we compare turtles to other species in terms of reproductive potential, it is much, much lower. So if you can see here in this example between black bear, moose, and white-tailed deer, at the end of the 17-year period, our turtle, in this example, snapping turtle, has just reached sexual maturity and is producing its first litter of young. It's laid its first nest, whereas our other mammalian species have exploded essentially. And this is assuming, and so we know from the previous slide, this nest might fail entirely. So the first time this turtle reproduces, none of the hatchlings may survive. And again, occasionally that's not a problem, but on a large scale and repeatedly, this can really impact our populations. This is just another graphic that kind of illustrates the same example. When you start losing those nests, either to predation, collection, habitat loss, what have you, it's kind of a lag effect. So the turtle will keep on coming back to the same place year after year. You might see these adult turtles and think, okay, we still see turtles here, the population's fine, but they aren't reproducing, we aren't seeing recruitment, and so this is what we call a ghost population, and they've kind of entered into an extinction vortex where over time we expect them they'll wink out, the population will wink out without intervention. So this brings us to Blanding's turtles. Blanding's turtles are a medium-sized turtle. The adults get to be about the size of a football. One of their most notable features is one of my favorites. They always look like they're smiling. They've got this nice bright yellow throat, really long neck, very easy to tell apart or distinguish. They are wetland specialists. So all throughout the Midwest, Canada, the Eastern United States, they're typically found in these early season ephemeral wetlands. Later on in the summer, they'll move into larger, more permanent wetlands. They do require a lot of wetlands in a big area. They move around a lot. And so throughout their region, a lot of other states have done some of these statewide assessments. Most notably the Northeast, they had a competitive state wildlife grant years back, and they really kind of put the foundation forward for doing these kind of projects. Michigan and Ohio, there have been some studies. Only 1 or 2 populations have been thoroughly studied in Ohio. In Michigan, most notably the ESGR reserve from the University of Michigan. They've had a long-term population study there. But in terms of assessing the whole state, Ohio and Michigan are kind of the holdouts in terms of a region-wide assessment. So within Ohio, we have some of these distinct population segments. The Elk Openings region is kind of a highly fragmented area. We've got, the Lake Erie marshes and some out even further out west. And so one of the first questions we need to answer when we start talking about Blanding's turtle conservation is, where are they? Within Ohio, we have a kind of basic understanding of where they are, but it is very imperfect, and this is part of why we needed these statewide assessments. So this kind of shows when Roger Conant did his surveys, where the counties where he reported them. The black dots are a little bit more recent, but even this, looking at it, we know that some of these black dots aren't accurate, and some of these areas should be updated. A much more comprehensive view of this will be coming out in the Reptiles of Ohio book that Greg Lips has been working on, but still, we have these pretty large data gaps in terms of even where these turtles are in the state. And so, moving forward with our state wildlife action plan goals to fill gaps, assess these populations, and develop conservation plans, again, just this very basic question of, where are these turtles, how many are they, how many are there, how are the populations doing, are unanswered for most of the state in Michigan and Ohio. So we partnered with individuals in Ohio, at the Ohio State University Biological Diversity Conservation Partnership, Michigan Natural Features Inventory, Michigan DNR, University of Purdue Fort Wayne, and we applied for a state wildlife grant to conduct surveys and really bring Michigan and Ohio up to the same place where a lot of these other states were, to contribute to this range-wide assessment. These are our field technicians. They're the ones who actually did the work. But they all look like they had a pretty good time doing it. So the objectives of this project were to develop and implement a monitoring strategy. We also wanted to create distribution models and identify priority areas, look at the genetic composition within and among populations, and then develop a comprehensive conservation plan for the 2 states. And today, we're mostly going to focus on the first one. So we followed the comprehensive monitoring strategy put forth by the Northeast Blanding's Turtle Working Group. This is a two-tiered approach that involves rapid assessments and long-term intensive surveys. The rapid assessments, they are smaller scale, they take place over a shorter period of time, whereas the long-term assessments, they have more of a temporal aspect, and trapping sessions occur 3 times throughout the year with different goals. So the rapid assessments are designed to look at just mostly presence, using admixture kind of style, and then spatially explicit capture recapture for the long-term sites can really flesh out some more of these population trends. We use these protocols put forth by the Northeast Blanding's Turtle Working Group. We pretty much took what worked and modified it to fit our sites. This is our study area. We selected the Lake Erie Watershed boundary because it gave us a reasonable kind of focal area within Ohio. This covers almost all of our known sightings of Blanding's turtles, or at least the sightings within the last 2 decades. Within Michigan, they have so many element occurrences that it was going to be unreasonable to survey the whole state, so we needed a reasonable boundary to test out our modifications to the coordinated monitoring strategy and just kind of rein us in, give us a launching off point. So we had 37 sites. I think Michigan had 27, 17-ish maybe, but we were all over the place throughout here, really putting in a lot of effort. The places we surveyed kind of were all over the board. We had these very nice pristine Lake Erie wetlands, some canals, ephemeral pools, early season wetlands, ponds, ditches. It was really kind of all over the place. We were everywhere. So our trapping surveys kind of followed this format where we had focal points with trap locations within each focal point. This was designed to target wetlands. We decided to change it around to maximize our trapping effort in wetlands so we could really better assess the turtle populations there. So each one of these, so total in these 4, we would have had 60 trap locations. And then we have these visual survey sites. We used bait jars with chopped up fish and fish oil, and we used a combination of hoop and promar traps. Promar traps are the smaller collapsible minnow traps. Yeah, the bait filling was our technician's least favorite part of this whole project. So the results of our first year, we trapped 37 sites in Ohio and 29 in Michigan. We put in cumulative over 12,000 trap nights. We caught quite a few Blanding's turtles, a lot of painted turtles, and so we ended up coming up with these averages. So a common metric is number of turtles per trap night, which ends up with this really small, really hard to interpret number. So a better way to look at it is trap nights per Blanding's turtle, essentially how much effort you had to put in at a site to get a Blanding's turtle. And to me, this is easier to interpret and really gives you an idea of what the population is like. If you can go someplace and you have to put in a very low amount of effort to get a Blanding's turtle, it likely means that there are enough of them there, they're doing well, that it kind of means something when you start to compare it. Now, if we look at our data versus the data from the Northeast Blanding's Turtle Working Group, we can start to draw some comparisons in terms of effort. And we can even go a step further to compare it state by state from the Northeast group. So we've got Ohio and Michigan and all their other states, and we can see here that we put in a lot of effort, but in terms of turtles per trap night, we tend to, or trap nights per turtle, we tend to be on the higher end. Michigan is right up there with some of these other states, and so what's really neat with the data we've collected is we can kind of start comparing to other states, site to site, and understanding what drives these populations. And even within the states, there's a lot of variation from site to site, and it's very cool. So in general, our trap captures, we peaked late May, and then it was consistent throughout the year until August, September. Things really started to die down. Although Michigan did have some luck trapping and catching Blanding's turtles into September, which was awesome. So getting at this site-to-site variation, you can see here's our estimated trap nights per Blanding's turtle. So again, a rough estimate of the effort to capture a Blanding's turtle at each site. And we can see it's all over the board. So even that number that we present for Ohio, there's a lot of variation where some sites, it took little to no effort versus other sites, it was a massive amount of effort to even, to get one Blanding's turtle. So this is really interesting, and these are going to go into some of our analyses, like for some occupancy modeling and that kind of stuff. So our sex ratios in Ohio, where we were getting males and females are enough to display this. It was generally pretty even, although some places it was slightly skewed. We'd need some bigger sample size to start really drawing some conclusions here. But there's nothing that really jumps out in terms of being worried that there's a skewed sex ratio at some of these sites, except perhaps some of these areas where it's really highly fragmented. Our age structure is pretty much what we expected, where we have a lot of adults and then fewer of the smaller age classes. We did catch them at some of these sites, but it was generally more rare. And again, this is kind of one of those things where we expect it. It's not, we don't need to sound the alarm immediately, but in some sites where we're using these same methods at place after place and we're not finding any of these younger age classes, it might mean that they're having recruitment problems, particularly in areas like the Oak Openings region where there's a lot of fragmentation. While we were out doing these surveys, we had a lot of opportunities for education and outreach. We were all over the place. It was a lot of fun. People were always curious as to what we were doing. So we made sure to take the time to explain to people, get people involved, and really try to educate people while we're out there collecting useful data for our states. We even entered a fun photo contest and won a t-shirt and a hat. So it was a lot of fun, and this really helped us and gave us a platform that we could talk to people and start educating people, but also starting to get people interested and to send us their data. So in 2020, what we did and didn't do, we obviously had to take a break from our full field season, but we wanted to kind of figure out what we missed and why. So in 2019, we did our surveys. There were some places where we know we have Blanding's turtles. I have transmitters on Blanding's turtles at these sites, and we didn't catch any using our rapid assessments. And so we wanted to go back and visit these sites. Well, we wanted to take the time to update our distribution models. And so what we did is we kind of used our distribution models to identify some new sites to head to, and then really kind of pulled in from the network of people we've been outreaching to get some new sites to go do some trapping. So we revisited some of these sites and scouted some new sites. We had 3 new property owners approach us saying they thought they had good habitat for Blanding's turtles on their property or had seen them. And so we scouted those out. Didn't find any this year, but we are all ready to rock and roll next year, so we can add them to our surveys. And revisiting our sites really paid off. There were 2 sites in particular where we hadn't caught any turtles. We knew we had sightings, and we were able to get them in year 2 by using our distribution models and the time we had to really intensely focus on some of these areas. One of the places, 2 of the turtles we caught were 2 of the 3 biggest Blanding's turtles we caught during our surveys. They were just these massive individuals, and it was a very rewarding experience. And we were able to put some transmitters on some turtles, some different size classes in some other areas, and so we were really able to go back and double check our work from the 2019 surveys, and this is going to go into that conservation plan and really help inform future assessments for this species. Our third objective was to look at the landscape genetics of these turtles, and so our partners at University of Purdue Fort Wayne, Mark Jordan and his students, they started looking at that. We collected 259 blood samples from 27 sites, and they were able to identify just these rough genetic neighborhoods or priority areas in Northwest Ohio, and that also is going to influence our surveys for the next round, where we've done a pretty good job of surveying a lot of these locations in the state. Now we can go back to some of these sites and try to get genetic samples to fill in some of the information for them. An unexpected thing we were able to do in 2020 was begin some implementation. This had never really been part of our plan, but it just kind of popped up. So we initiated a head starting program at the Toledo Zoo, where we brought female turtles into the lab. We induced oviposition, we collected the eggs, incubated them, and they hatched out. Right now we have 55 juvenile blandingii turtles in our lab. They are between 32 and 50 grams. They're growing like weeds, and they're eventually going to be released back into some of these sites within the state to kind of help the population. Fun thing here in this lower corner, apologize, it's kind of covered up, but we retrofitted our sturgeon rearing facility to be turtle tanks, and so the turtles will be moving into there shortly now that they're outgrowing their plastic bins, and this is going to be a really perfect setup going forward, because the blandingii turtles and the sturgeon are never going to be in there at the same time, and we can just thoroughly clean between them and use it year round. And a lot of this is, what's really neat for this is this site that we got some of these eggs from. It came from our citizen science partners, and we'll talk about it here in a second. Another really neat implementation we were able to work on with Metro Parks Toledo was a pond where we've had blandingii turtles in the past. We've tracked them there. It's about 2 feet deep. It's a human-made pond, very nondescript, and it dried out this year. We had drought conditions, and there was no water, so the Metro Parks brought in a bulldozer, and they just regraded the whole area. They made some deeper spots that will hold water year round. They took this embankment here and removed the trees to provide an open basking area. They regraded the slope so that it's a lot easier for turtles to get up, and they used the trees and root balls from the slope to put into the wetland and make some structure. So this is, once this fills back in the spring, it is going to be hopefully some very awesome turtle habitat. We're going to monitor the nesting area usage with some wildlife cameras, and so we're really excited about this, and we're really hopeful to see how the turtles respond to this. We have 3 years of marker capture trap data at this site, and it'll be, yeah, we're really excited about this. Another fun thing that we've worked with, these aren't not necessarily blandingii turtles, but we are doing these surveys, we get data on other species, and this has been really cool because, so this is mass versus carapace length for snapping turtles. Our current harvestable size limit of 11 inches in the state protects 55% of the reproductive females. If that were 12 inches, we would protect 87% of the reproductive females, because they're sexually mature at around 150 millimeters there. And then another fun fact is Conan's max carapace length was around the high 330 mark, and we knocked that out of the park. We got some really interesting snapping turtle data this year. So I've mentioned citizen science before, and one of the ways that we found some of these sites and got some really good information was by engaging citizen scientists. So you remember I mentioned some of these visual surveys. I had a couple of citizen scientists doing visual surveys for me, and it worked out rather well. It's a model I want to use going forward. We created this handout and gave them and distributed it at the Biggest Week in Birding when all these birders descend on northern Ohio, to have them send us some sightings. And we had some really good results with this in terms of, this identified some of the sites that people saw this and thought, hey, I've got this pond on my property. I think I've got blandingii turtles here, and so we get sightings from Michigan and Ohio, and it's been pretty successful, I feel. One of the reasons that citizen science and these efforts are so great is because when you start looking at the effort that goes into these long-term assessments, it's quite a lot. So this is from the Northeast Blandingii Turtle Working Group, where in order to do all these surveys at a site, you're looking at 100 field days, and that's quite a bit. That's a lot of technicians and a lot of time, and then that translates into a lot of money. There's a reason a lot of these projects have a pretty big price tag, and citizen science offers a very reasonable alternative, or supplement, I guess. This is Terry Braymeyer. He's one of our citizen scientists. He has been with this project since 2014. He came to us. He'd been finding blandingii turtles in his backyard. We were skeptical at first, and he just started delivering pictures. And so he organized his local community to just start submitting pictures each year during nesting season. They literally have blandingii turtles coming up and nesting in their backyards. And so initially he was kind of doing this on his own, We deputized him, we brought him under our wing, we got him permits and did some training in terms of handling and biosecurity. So Terry is kind of the point man out there. People will call him when they find Blanding's turtles, and he runs around and collects data for us. He measures them, takes pictures, we'll go out with him. And this has been one of our most wildly successful programs. It's been a lot of fun. So the Blanding's turtles, they have the pattern on their plastron is unique to each individual, and so you just have to meet a few criteria to be able to use the patterns for something like mark recapture. And so they can be photographed, the patterns are unique and they don't change. And so we consulted some experts, and given the time frame that we're talking here from 2016 to 2020, it's unlikely the patterns would change significantly. And so we went forward using Terry's the photographs they collected for photographic mark recapture. We used a program called Hotspotter, and what it does is it compares the photos to each other. It's like fingerprints analysis software. It compares points and peaks and troughs to each other and assigns it a score. And it's really cool. It's very easy to use. And it identified about from 116 photos, it identified 65 adult female Blanding's turtles. So again, they're taking pictures when they're nesting, so these are only a small portion of the population. So we did some very preliminary population estimates using program Mark, and we estimated the population size of adult female turtles to about 87, give or take. And so if we assume, normal sex ratios like we saw from our trapping data, we're more than 160 adult turtles at this site. And this is really encouraging. This is one of the highest population sites within the state. If we look at this review from 2010, and again, just shows mostly what we don't know and why we need these surveys. Within Ohio, we only had one site where we thought we had 25 to 50 individuals. Now they're on the map with a site that has more than 100. And I gave this talk to these citizen scientists, and they're visibly proud of their contribution, and it has really inspired a lot of people. This effort keeps on growing year after year. We followed this up with some trapping. So we had the photo data. We wanted to follow up with some trapping to verify our population estimates. And the first week we trapped there, we caught 68. And then, interestingly enough, they had the nesting season right after. Only 2 were notched from our first round. So we had roughly 107 turtles in that first, just early on. Then we came back for a few more rounds of trapping, and again, we pretty much confirmed the population estimates from the photographic mark recapture, and it's been very interesting. The citizen science aspect of this, there are some pros and cons. Obviously there's a list of things people are concerned about, but overall I feel those are outweighed by the pros. It's very cost effective. It promotes inclusion. These people get really involved, and then really promotes stewardship. So water is a very serious issue out where this community is, and many of their houses spend the spring underwater or being pumped out. They're still concerned when they start talking about dredging the ditches, how is this going to affect the turtles? And so long term, this is a great way to get some more data for the state, and we've kind of proved this with our model of using citizen science data to generate some of these population estimates. Something else we've been working on with a group of students at Bowling Green State University is a mobile app that will do this pattern recognition on the fly for these turtles and identify individuals and provide a lot of data for the state regarding the location of turtles, very similar to like platforms like HertMapper and iNaturalist, but also these individual markings can be used to estimate population sizes like we've shown with the citizen science group. Again, this will be a multi-platform app that does this pattern recognition on the fly. There's also a website version that will be implemented that does the same thing where you have a user account. It'll keep all of your information and all the turtles you've matched and let you enter in some data and really hopefully get people involved so we can continue generating a lot more data for the state.
Hello everyone, this is ShellShots. Our app is about turtle identification. The primary motivation of this app is to help researchers track turtles and their migration pattern through crowdsourced turtle information that is uploaded by the general public. So this is our homepage. From here, users can register, or if you are an existing user, you can log in. Once you are logged in, now you are allowed to upload an image of a turtle, but if you try to upload an image of anything that is not a turtle, then the system rejects the image altogether and sends you a warning that you have to upload an image of a turtle. But if you do upload an image of a turtle, it gets matched against the turtles in the database. And if you have found a new turtle, you are given a notification that allows you to rename your turtle, to name your turtle, or if your turtle is matched against a turtle in the database, the information of the turtle in the database will be shown next to your turtle. We also have a locate a turtle near you section which allows you to see the uploaded turtles near you. So as you can see, in our case, all of these turtles have been uploaded from the Toledo region. Users can view all the uploaded turtle images in the turtle images section, and if they click on the individual images, they are able to see more information about the turtle, such as age, sex, location, identified date, and description. And we have also developed an iOS app that has similar functionalities to the web app. Users can log in, upload images of a turtle, view images, or locate turtles. So if you try to upload an image of a turtle, you get an option to upload from either the gallery or take a new picture. So if you select an image from a gallery, you have to fill out the similar form that you filled in the web app. And once you hit upload, you will be notified through an email when your image is processed, and you have to go through the same process as in the web app, where you can now name if you have found a new turtle or see information if your turtle was matched against an existing turtle. Thank you.
All right, that was Benish, the grad students are working on this project. Just a real quick caveat, it won't involve a map that shows exactly where the turtles are. We were focusing on the functionality of the pattern recognition, and masking the locations will be an end game thing, so we're not going to have a roadmap for where to find turtles. But so yes, please stay tuned because we're really excited about the development of this app. And with that, I need to acknowledge everyone who has been part of this project, my helpers big and small, people who have inspired me, all of my partners. Again, this has been a massive effort that involves many organizations and many people, and I can't thank our technicians and our supporters enough. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.